project got to the heart of the essential question: how can I use my passion to constructively engage with a community? Her courage in reaching out to unfamiliar faces and her ability to bring together a supportive, invested community united by a shared love of art and storytelling stand out as exemplary. Please help me in welcoming Ji-won Lee.
Hello everyone, my name is Ji-won Lee, and today I'll be presenting my capstone project titled How Does Participation in a Community Project Can Influence Motivation, Personal Growth, and Artistic Exploration. Don't we all have something we really loved as a kid? For me, it was animation. Since both of my parents worked, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents watching animations like Disney classics, Ghibli, Hello Kitty, and One Piece. Those animations were the joy of my life. They sparked my imagination and made me want to create my own character someday. And that passion eventually became my career dream to become an animator. And that's what led me to this capstone project. I want to use my talent and passion to help and connect with others. To talk about my inspiration behind my project, I'd like to give you some context about who I am. Growing up in South Korea, pursuing art, especially animation, wasn't easy. As researcher Kyungmi Baek explains, South Korea's education system focuses heavily on college entrance exam, so art is often left out of the curriculum. And that was absolutely true in my case. Most of Korean high schools don't offer any art or music classes. So students who want to pursue art must attend expensive academies, also known as hagwon. But often those are often focused on memorization and technical copying rather than collaboration and creative thinking. From my own experience, I remember drawing same objects over and over again, more than 200 times, just to make sure that I can draw that object hyper-realistically. So I saw students like me often felt left out or discouraged, and there was limited time for creativity and almost no opportunity to collaborate and exchange ideas with peers. And yet, many still follow this path because this is the only way to gaining admissions to a top art school in Korea. Seeing this, I realized that I couldn't change the entire system, but I could build something different. And that's what this capstone became. As a student who through all of these struggles, I want to support others like me. So for my capstone project, I aim to create a space where students can connect and share their creative journey and support each other's career growth. Additionally, I hope this project will provide valuable resources for those who are eager to experience character design firsthand. But before I dive into the project, I sent out a survey to my old high school, Yeouido Girls High School, and 32 students responded. 97% of students answered that art is seen as less important than other academic subjects. And 56% said it's possible to find online character design communities, but they are not common. 88% said they'd be interested in joining a community where students who enjoy animation and character design can connect. This result told me that there is real interest, but no safe place. So I decided to create one by myself. Then I thought, where should I start this project? Then I saw that more than 96% of students connect with other artists online using platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and Discord. Also, Shinhye Kim, a professor of Seoul University, said, kids these days are very online media friendly, and they role as active content creators. Based on this information, I decided to unfold this project online using Twitter. Here's my project overview. It's divided into 4 sections, and I'll explain in detail through the presentation. Number 1, preparation. When you're designing a character for the first time, it's hard to know where to start. Do you start with a name, or backstory, or an outfit? To help this out, I made a fictional story world to guide people who join in my project. It is based on the modern digital country, and the outside world is destroyed, but the deeper plot isn't important here. What matters is that it gave participants a base to build their characters on. And I also made a character design template to help the students who join my project. It includes all of the information about how to design a character, and I divided it into sections and wrote a short description to guide students. After all of those Google Docs and character design sheets are completed, I created an account and uploaded online. And also, I made some cool promotional posters and reached out to bigger accounts to retweet them. In my initial promotional tweet, successfully reached 20,000 views through continuous outreach, and it even sent out to a several communities in Twitter. And then I uploaded a Google form for application. And to my surprise, 14 people signed up, and each of them submitted their unfinished character sheet. From here, I like to explain using real characters that were designed by 2 of the students who joined my project. Let me introduce Elena and Carmen. Elena is a character first created who is extremely shy and afraid of outside world. He doesn't have any friends, but he has a special talent for music. Carmen, on the other hand, she's reckless and feels no emotion ever since the day she was born. So because of that, she's willing to try anything, but she can't make any good music or art since she lacks the emotional depth. During the design session, students often ask me questions, and I gave them feedback through Kakao Talk. We talked about very basic settings like names and height and personality, to deeper plots like backstory, family, and environment they grew up in. This step finalized their very basic setting, and we moved on to character development session. I encourage students to roleplay as their character, even creating a Twitter account under their character's name. Because I believe that most easiest ways to build a detailed character is to step into their shoes and think from their perspective. Here's how this phase worked. I gave them specific scenarios, and they answered by explaining how their character is gonna act or think. Based on their answers, we continued to develop a character in a deeper level. For example, I gave them this scenario. And the Elena's response was to stay in that fake world because he only seeks comfort and familiarity. So even if the world isn't real, if it's safe, and that's enough for him. But Carmen, she wants to break that illusion and escape from that fake world. A student who created this character added an extra detail to her backstory, like, since Carmen can't lie, she expects the world around her to be honest too. And these are their final character designs. Elena grew up avoiding risks. He stayed in the comfort zone of his parents, and he eventually gave up music that he once loved. And he tends to stay silent on most of social issues, and he just usually watches from the sideline. But Carmen, she became a detective who grew up through trial and error. Since she isn't afraid of anything, she confronts even the most of the horrifying world and always trying to make a difference. Let's see the final result. I got 14 fully completed character sheets and characters, and 9 people of community members. And these are the actual character sheets. It's a lot of writing. It's even longer, but I ran out of space. So this is for the Elenao, and this is for Carmen. I've been talking about only these 2, but there are 12 more, and each character has a unique personality and backstory. So I'll just quickly walk you through it. This character became a magician, a kindergarten teacher, a librarian, an actress, an archery player, a detective, a pirate, an illegal doctor, a CEO, an orchestra leader, a lawyer, an office worker, a bohemian, an office worker, an office worker. After all of the session ended, 9 people shared their SNS account to keep connected and to build a community that I aim for. They discussed about characters' MBTI types, shared theme songs, and even revealed their inspiration behind their character design. And this small group is still active online, regularly talking about their recent character designs and sharing their art. Sometimes they upload their art from Hagwon and Croquis. Let's see the impact. I sent out a survey to the students who participate in my project, and 9 out of 14 students responded. 78% said the whole experience was 5-star, and they were very satisfied to join this project and community. And 88% said all of the interactions and Q&A part was enough to build a good character, and they're very satisfied with their final character design. My main goal was to build a community where students can connect and share without feeling pressured or stressed out. Is it really achieved? Let's see. My presentation kind of cut out, but I'll explain it. More than 90% of students said they're gonna join a similar project again if I held one later. And another 10% said they're just gonna consider if they're following their situation. And for the qualitative data, one person wrote that it was totally my type of setting, so designing a character was exciting. And every 9 answer includes that this project was very fun to join. And with that said, I believe I achieved my goal. Personally, I learned a lot through this experience. When I first starting this project, I have so many doubts like, will anyone participate, or can I really finish it? But I reminded myself that this project is rooted into something I truly love. So I just focusing on preparing thoughtfully and staying consistent. In the end, I was surprised to meet persons who shared my passion, and I had meaningful conversation, completed the full journey of 14 different characters, and even helped to grow a small but steady online community. This project taught me that meaningful things don't need to be perfect. They just need care, intention, and courage to begin. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you find it as meaningful as it was for me. Thank you.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive work. So when our next speaker began, he wasn't really sure what he was going to do, but one thing was clear. He wanted to do something meaningful, something that would have a lasting impact on the community that he's part of. Rather than opting for a quick fix or something showy, he took the time to listen to both students and teachers. Through that process of community engagement, he identified ways to improve day-to-day life on campus in ways which are subtle, yet powerful. His project helps his community day after day in ways that support student well-being and school spirit. Many of you will already have seen the results of his work around the school, but may not have realized where they came from. Today, he is here to share that story with you, so please welcome Christian Garcia.
All of us in this room have been at SJA for at least 1 year, and within that time, we've all had things that we wish we could change. Some of us wish we could change the cafeteria food or what time school begins or ends. I myself was no different. I had things that I wish I could change as well. So, for my Capstone project, I wanted to focus on improving student comfort and well-being through campus improvements. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Christian Garcia. I came to SJA in 2020 when I was in 8th grade, and I've attended 6 different schools before SJA. Since being at SJA, there have been campus improvements to the soccer field, to the drains around campus, and to the gym flooring. However, I still felt that more could be done. When we began our Capstone project, we were given the essential question of how can I use my passion to constructively engage with the community? And when we got this question, I knew what I wanted to do. These are my 4 goals going into my Capstone project, and in order to explain each of them, I'd like to bring you through a day in my life as a student. First, I walk into school, typically pretty late, and look through the halls, and all I see are white walls, very sterile, hardly anything to instill a sense of pride in our campus and community. I go to class, and eventually I need to use the restroom. So I raise my hand, I ask to go to the restroom, and when I enter, there's a not-so-faint smell of watermelon in the air. Vaping has become increasingly common on our campus. However, I get over it, I use the restroom, and when I look to the left of me, I look out the clear window and see that middle school students are playing in the courtyard, right outside the window. If I can see them, they can probably see me too. This makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable, as using the restroom is a vulnerable time for us. But I go back to class, and eventually it's time for lunch. But I have a test next block, I need to study. So instead of going to lunch, I decide to stay in the learning pod and do some reviewing. When it's time for my test, my stomach is growling. It's really loud, and it's very embarrassing. Finally, I'm able to go home, and I can finally relax. This is a common story for us as students. There are different things throughout the day that can make us feel uncomfortable. So, for my Capstone project, I wanted to address these issues. Before I could do so, I needed to conduct some primary research to see how other students felt about these initiatives. First, using a bathroom without a door makes me uncomfortable. 81% of students responded that yes, it did make them uncomfortable. This may seem pretty obvious, but some restrooms on campus did not have doors, such as the fieldhouse restrooms on the first floor. I would support stricter enforcement of rules regarding vaping in school. 96% of students responded that yes, they would be in support of such an initiative. This was especially surprising to me, as I did not expect a student body that has many students that vape would also be in such strong support of this initiative. I am in favor of having to-go lunches available to high school students. Finally, 90% of students responded that they would be in support of this. This showed me that all of my initiatives were strongly backed by the student community that I wanted to help out. However, because of time constraints and different challenges that I faced throughout my project, I could only address these 2 goals: to improve school pride and to increase restroom privacy. First, I wanted to focus on improving student comfort. Before, when you'd walk upstairs and turn right in the field house, you'd be met with this long, white, sterile corridor with nothing on the walls. Throughout my 5 years here at SJA, I always thought, man, someone should paint a mural there. Such a missed opportunity. So for my capstone project, I decided to do just that. First, a few friends and I began by painting the wall white to give us a clean canvas for the mural that we wanted to paint over it. This took us only one afternoon, much quicker than I thought it would, and it allowed us to get started the next day. After getting approval from Mr. Saw and getting him to order paint, we began by painting the green portion of the mural. This took another few days as we needed to paint some extra coats to make sure that the white was completely covered. Next, we began with the design itself, and this was not as simple as just painting the wall. This required one student to hold a projector against the wall at a perfect angle so that it wouldn't warp, while 3 other students would trace it very quickly, and other students would add tape. This would allow us to have clear, clean lines that would allow us to put the hilltoppers on the mural. However, as all my math teachers would know, my forte is not math, so the hilltoppers did not fully fit on the mural, so I had to stay a few extra hours and paint green around the S to make sure it all fit. After this, with the continued collaboration of the National Art Honor Society, we began painting the rest of the mural. Here is the SJA Jeju and the home of the portion of the mural. This also required countless hours after school, almost every single day, of different students working on this project to make sure that it was completed in time for KISAC. In these pictures, you can see multiple different students collaborating on this project and working together to make sure that we finished on time. When we did the mural, it brought us together and made us work as a team. When I made these new relationships with people, I felt more comfortable around them in class and around school. This showed me that this project was able to bring students together and make them feel more comfortable on campus. It allowed students to build new connections that they wouldn't have otherwise built. The mural is a nice reminder that we, as a team, have support when we go into games. This is a quote from Kendra Poole, a 9th grade student athlete. This showed me that while the process was important in bringing students together, the product was as well. This hallway in particular is very important for our student athletes. It's the last hallway they go through before they enter a game, KISAC, JIT, any large tournament. And having this reminder of the student community supporting them allows them to, like I said, feel supported. So throughout the planning process, students were brought together through collaboration and through project management. They had to manage their time and see when people were available. And the product served as a unifying symbol for athletes and as a reminder of the school community, increasing school pride. All in all, leading to more student comfort on campus. However, I was not done. There was more I wanted to accomplish. I also wanted to improve student well-being, and I chose to do this by increasing restroom privacy. As you can see in these pictures, there were some restrooms that had bathroom windows that were not frosted, and some restrooms that did not have a door leading into them, meaning that students outside or in the hallway could clearly see into the restrooms, which meant that students might feel uncomfortable. I wanted to see, though, if other students felt uncomfortable using these spaces just as I did. I didn't like that people could see me from the hallway. It made me feel weird. Sometimes people change in there too, so it wasn't very comfortable. This showed me that other students also felt uncomfortable using these spaces, and that I was not the only student that felt this way. This helped show me that something needed to change. So when it was time to solve the problem, I was surprised by how simple of a solution it was. In order to frost the window, all I needed to do was reach out to admin so that they could submit a facilities request, and within 3 days, the window was frosted. It was surprising to me how fast and easy of a process this was, as this had been something that had been concerning me for the last 5 years at SJA. On the right, you can see that while we were not able to install a door to the bathroom because it created a vacuum seal, which meant elementary school students wouldn't be able to open it, we were able to come to a compromise and install a half curtain, which blocked students' view from the hallway, but still allowed students to enter freely. After I put these initiatives in place, I wanted to see if the student community felt a little bit different. With the curtain there and the windows frosted, now people can't see into the bathroom so easily. I feel more comfortable using that bathroom now. This showed me that the student community was positively affected throughout this project, and that it led to more student comfort using the restrooms. Us as students are extremely busy. We have numerous different things to worry about in our social lives and our academic lives. We shouldn't have to worry about using the restroom in a private manner. So, This project allows us as students to focus on other things rather than using the restroom. So looping back to our central question of how can I use my passion to constructively engage with the community? While my passion is not putting plastic on windows, adding curtains in doorways, and painting walls, my passion is improving whatever community I am a part of. And here at SJA, that's the student community. Before I graduated, I wanted to leave a lasting impact, and this project allowed me to do so. However, this is not to say I was perfect and I did this project perfectly. I still feel like there were some things that I could have done better. I think I could have done more to collaborate with Shinsege to make to-go lunches a reality, as this was an initiative that was strongly supported by the student body. I think also I could have managed my time more effectively, allowing me to meet deadlines and accomplish all 4 of my project goals, not just 2. In conclusion, small, unseemingly important issues do matter to students. Students have a unique perspective on these kinds of issues that staff does not have. This is not because staff is not good enough, but it's just because we're a part of different communities that have different experiences. I, as a student, had been thinking that these things should change for the last 5 years I'd been here. And then when I actually changed it, I was surprised by how easy it was. So I urge all other students, don't be scared to make change. Put into place the things that you want to see. Thank you.
Hello, all. Like many Capstone students, Katie Choi struggled to get her plan off the ground. She had a really great idea, but was unsure about how to put her plan into action. Despite this, it is through her resilience that she was able to connect with her community and develop a program that combined her interests in art, chemistry, and environmental activism. Her work with dorm students allowed her to show others that something we thoughtlessly throw away can be used to make something beautiful. It is her hope that this impact will continue to ripple out through the community and make a positive change. Please help me in welcoming Ms. Jihi Katie Choi to the stage.
Good morning, SJA students. My name is Jihi Choi, and today I'll be talking about my capstone project on EcoCraft Studio. Oh, sorry, I hold it wrong. Okay, so there are many things that are contributing to climate change and world pollution. But what is one on few on the list that contributes to air, soil, and water pollution all at once? I was originally going to ask if anyone has any takers, but I'm not confident I'll be able to hear you, so I'm going to do some mind reading. I'm going to guess that most of you have said or thought plastic pollution, oil pollution, or industrial waste. Although all of them are great and correct answers, I'm going to guess that none of your first thoughts were food waste or synthetic dyes. Now, food waste and synthetic dyes are one of the least talked about, yet most damaging contributors to environmental pollution. Food waste doesn't just sit in landfills and disappear, it releases toxic gases like methane, hydrogen sulfide, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide. And also, it leaks harmful runoff into water and even degrades the soil when it's improperly disposed of. And synthetic dyes are no different. And that lack of awareness is exactly the problem that EcoCraft Studio is here to fix. But first, let's focus on food waste. Why are we so knowledgeable about these other pollutions like plastic pollution, oil, and industrial waste, but not food waste? That's because in South Korea, South Korea recycles almost 98% of their food waste, that our country has almost zero food waste to consider. So you might be asking, so Katie, why did you choose a topic that's not even an issue in this country? Well, that's because there's a flaw. We recycle 98% of our food waste, but that's only accounted for when it's thrown out properly, and if it meets the requirements through its processing. So here's the catch. Not all food waste, So here's the catch. Not all food waste makes it into the recycling system. Some end up in regular trash bins, which means it gets incinerated or sent to landfills. And some, even if they are separated, contaminations like plastic wrappers, bones, or metal can make it unable to be recycled. So that 98%, that's the best case scenario. The real number could be a lot lower when you factor in human error, lack of awareness, and poor sorting habits. Multiple articles and news reports state that farmers are reluctant to use the recycled food waste in their farming or to feed livestock, as few recycled food waste is used for composite, livestock feed, or biogas. As seen in this article, there has been cases of livestock getting killed from feeding food waste, as it's not 100% sure that if the food waste contains toothpicks or other metal or plastic doesn't get mixed into the food waste. And also, they don't use it because of the smell and excess sodium. And of course, we won't want to eat any 흑돼지 that ate food waste, right? And even though we recycle 98% of our food waste, the amount of food waste we create is almost 5.5 million tons a year, and that has not changed over the course of this 5 years. So, how do we approach this issue and stay true to the 98%? My answer is to eliminate human error as much as possible. Unfortunately but true, these issues are man-made, and we are all likely to have thrown away a box of leftovers once or twice a week. I've done it too. On an individual scale, it might seem nothing too dire, but if you imagine 1 billion people all across the world doing the same thing, that would account for an actual problem. So, statistically, the world wastes about 2.5 billion tons of food every year, which in units some of us might be more familiar with, that's 2,267.96 billion kilograms of food waste per year. As for synthetic dyes, as Jeju is becoming an increasingly popular destination for both tourists and possible residents, the number of chain brands and restaurants are showing up here and there. Majority of clothing brands use synthetic dyes. Synthetic dyes are one of the most common types of dyes used to give color to, well, everything. From clothes and yarn to chew toys and plastic containers, they're everywhere. So much so that we forget something very important, that they're toxic. Many synthetic dyes contain harmful chemicals that pollute waterways, harm ecosystems, and pose health risks to humans, especially those involved in the manufacturing process. And yet, we rarely stop to think about what gives our products their vibrant color. And that lack of awareness is exactly what EcoCraft Studio is striving to achieve, combining education and sustainability practices to preserve the environmental beauty of Jeju. To give a short overview about what EcoCraft Studio is, EcoCraft Studio offers students the opportunity to gain knowledge on the issue of food waste and synthetic dyes, and give them the opportunity to learn methods of proper disposal, implementation of proper food waste disposal practices, and to have fun in making various different types of craft by making dyes from food waste and other natural materials. But first, how did I come to the decision to make EcoCraft Studio and focus on food waste, which led to making natural dyes? Well, for a small background story, I come from a rather large family, according to Korea's practices, I guess. Our family generates almost 3 to 4 kg of food waste every 3 days. That's approximately, or a little more than 1 kg of food waste produced daily, which calculates to almost 365 kg of food waste produced every year from one family. And the amount of clothes, the number may even be larger. So, to educate myself, I've chosen my capstone project to revolve around food waste and teach students how to properly recycle them. The specific community I've decided to work with were dorm students. With the routine of regularly eating cafeteria food and or takeout, I've made the hypothesis that many of them don't know what they eat and where they end up. So I've done a few surveys and interviews with dorm students to confirm my hypothesis. And still, to my surprise, many students reflected that they lack great knowledge on synthetic dyes and even more when it came to food waste. So working with these dorm students wasn't only out of convenience, but also because they were the ideal audience for intervention and education, and that behavioral change is possible through better understanding. So, through the course of 3 months, I worked with students from 6th to 12th grade, mainly 5 students from middle school, but 4 occasional guests from 11th and 12th grade. And during those 3 months, we've done informative lessons on food waste and synthetic dyes, done some brainstorming, made posters for food waste collections, and made natural dyes and used those dyes to make tie-dye shirts and wool-felted trinkets, which I'll show photos of later. So let's take a deeper look into the stages of this project over the 3 months. This project first began with a simple question in mind. How can I use my interest in chemistry and art to have a positive impact on the SJA community? Then that idea turned into a sustainability practice over a 5-stage journey. So first, stage 1, we needed to identify the problem. So like I've mentioned before, I've done interviews and conducted surveys and got a good basis of where the situation was in the dorms. There was a clear lack of awareness and knowledge and some issues of food waste disposal within. So, for my stage 2, I made EcoCraft Studio into a CASP activity, allowing students to participate and earn volunteer hours with the guidance of our mentor, Ms. Lovelace and Mr. Ramsey. We gathered the materials we needed to begin the project. In stage 3, we've done informative educational lessons. I used the first few sessions of EcoCraft Studio for raising awareness and the knowledge part. It helped the students better understand how food waste should be handled and also explored real-world solutions and sustainability practices that we can implement within the dorms to make their living environment better. In stage 4 and 5, we actually did the action part. Once we had a foundation of knowledge, we went right into action. We began collecting food waste such as onion skin, old berries, unused beets, and used how to preserve them properly to use them during our dye making process. Alongside this, we created awareness posters to place around the dorms to use the EcoCraft Studio waste bins. The EcoCraft Studio waste bins, we placed 14 of them around girls' and boys' dorms to collect food waste to use for our natural dye making. These posters help promote the use of the EcoCraft Studio bins and listed acceptable foods, unacceptable foods to put in, and encourage students to reduce takeout and practice better food sorting. In stage 5, the products. Students experimented with natural dye making by boiling different types of food waste and natural materials to extract color. The dyed materials were then used to create tie-dye shirts and wool-felted crafts like dolls and other things. So, to recap. At the start of this project, we surveyed 27 students and faculty in dorms, and only 26% felt knowledgeable about synthetic dyes, and less than 19% of the students recycled regularly. However, 78% of those respondents expressed interest in finding sustainable solutions. So, in our follow-up survey after the project, 78% expressed interest in finding sustainable. 85.7% of the participants said they are now more knowledgeable about the issue of food waste and how to recycle clothes and dispose of food waste properly. One student within the EcoCraft Studio group even started practicing food waste separation at home, showing real behavioral change beyond school. An unintended but positive outcome were from the trash bins. There was a photo, but now I can't find it. So due to the messy schedule and breaks and also personal schedule problems, there were times when the food waste bins were neglected. Thus, there were times when the food waste collected in the bins would get moldy and unusable. On those days, EcoCraft Studio would make a trip to Hanshin apartment to throw away the food waste into the machines and properly dispose of the waste. Although we weren't able to recycle them or use them for natural dyes, they were able to be properly disposed of. And there was an observational impact within the dorms from both girls and boys, as students actively used the waste bins so they can be disposed of properly, instead of food waste ending up in general waste bins or worst, recycling bins. Overall, EcoCraft Studio has made a meaningful impact on the SJ community, especially within the dorms, by turning food waste and synthetic dyes issue as an opportunity for creativity and education. By making natural dyes and reusable products, students began to see waste not as trash, but as a resource to make something beautiful. The surveys also showed a real shift in awareness and behavior. We're missing a slide, but looking ahead, as I hope to expand EcoCraft Studio in reaches that is more acceptable, before ending the project of EcoCraft Studio, we actually created a pamphlet on how to dispose of food waste properly. It had information on how to use the food waste bins, and mostly accessible for the incoming residents of Jeju and also foreign tourists that might appreciate on how to use the waste bins disposal correctly. It also had a fun little activity on how to make natural dyes at home. And this pamphlet came in 3 different languages: Korean, English, and Chinese. And thus, EcoCraft Studio achieved in making our community a more sustainable community when it came to food waste and synthetic dyes. Thank you all for listening.
Check, check. Am I audible to everybody? All right, good. All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. It's with the utmost pride and sincerity that I get the opportunity to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Liam Boo Hammond. Liam did not actually take the Capstone course, nor did he complete a traditional SJA Capstone project. Instead, he and 10 of his classmates embarked on a 2-year academic challenge issued by the College Board, a program they pioneered as they are the first class at SJA to graduate from it. This challenge is made up of 2 courses, AP Seminar and AP Research, which together comprise the AP Capstone program. What you're about to see here in just a second is the culmination of Liam's AP Research project, a year-long self-directed inquiry in which students design, implement, and report on an original investigation. The charge of AP Research is to find a meaningful gap in existing research and attempt to close it by engaging in the research process, beginning with what you might call little R research, a review of the existing literature on a topic, and then developing a research question, forming an hypothesis, selecting and carrying out a methodology to address that gap in question, and then finally discussing the findings in a research paper, and then a presentation, which you're going to see here in just a second. I'm actually making this sound a lot simpler and easier than it is, and as you'll soon see, the detailed work and effort in these projects is truly remarkable. Liam's is singular for its creativity, its meticulous design, and his clear passion for engineering and solving complex problems. On a personal note, teaching this cohort of young scholars has been perhaps the most rewarding experience of my teaching career. I could not be more proud of them, and it is in that spirit that I present Mr. Liam Boo Hammond.
여기. Good afternoon. Lay thine eyes upon my bicycle, and thou shalt see it is wooden. When I show someone this or talk about it, the first question I usually get asked is, why? And that's a valid question. It's the question Mr. Page asked me for the first 3 months of me trying to justify this project for my AP research program. And at first, I just say, it was a cool idea that I've had. I like biking, I like building stuff, so why don't I build a bike? Because, how many people realistically do you know that have a wooden bicycle? It's just me now. But the more that I've worked on this and that I've built this, wrote about it, and tested it, I don't feel like that answer does my project justice anymore. I think that this project is a lot more meaningful than just something cool that I built as a hobby, but it was a chance for me to solve a problem and create something new. And I think that should be the goal of everyone's capstone or end of high school projects, is to create something new. And in order to do that, we first have a problem that we like to solve. And you'll find that in many different ways for many different people. For me, I had a book about wooden bicycles at home. I read that, and then I found some more research about wooden bicycles, and I came across one master's thesis by Nicholas Brent Taylor, in which he studied the current wooden bicycle designs and also came up with his own. In that paper, he outlined the problem that due to wood's inherent properties, there is a lack of solutions to the inherent interface problems present within wooden bicycles. This gave me a goal for my project, which was now to address or solve these inherent interface problems in wooden bicycles. When I'm referring to inherent interface problems, I mean that they're in a bicycle, components, whether they be wooden or not, have to connect with each other and interface with each other. And in that connection, there arise certain issues, one of which is related to load distribution, and that is the one I have chosen to focus on for my project. So in order to address the issue of load distribution within a wooden bicycle frame, I created the research question: to what extent do biomimetic designs inspired by the structure of bones affect the load distribution properties of a wooden bicycle frame? So, in order for me to come to a solution or answer, I had to look at two main ideas. The first one being load distribution properties of a wooden bicycle frame, and the second one being biomimetic designs. The problem lied within load distribution in wooden bicycle frames. But in order to understand that, I had to understand load distribution in bicycles themselves. Load distribution refers to the way that loads or forces are distributed and managed throughout a structure. And according to previous research, in a traditional bicycle frame, the bottom bracket area here, the head tube here, and the seat tube, these interface points are the places that require the most efficient load distribution due to the high levels of stress at these points. From this, I learned that my design should seek to minimize loads concentrated at these points. However, as Brent Taylor stated, there are issues with load distribution specific to wooden bicycles due to the properties of wood, the main property being anisotropy, which is defined as the tendency of a material to exhibit different mechanical properties depending on the direction that forces are applied. This comes from wood's hierarchical structure, which means that in a wood piece itself, there are multiple different scales and layers in which the structure is built up, and each of those layers have different structures themselves, which distribute and manage loads in different ways, depending on how the force is applied. This meant that as I was building my bicycle, it would be harder for me because loads are harder to distribute due to anisotropy, and that when I was testing and analyzing my bicycle, I had to account for this in my analysis. So in order to address those problems, I turned to this method of creating biomimetic designs to address anisotropy and load distribution in wooden bicycles. Biomimicry is the design technique of mimicking processes or structures in nature to solve engineering problems. And for my design, I decided to mimic the structure of bones. Now, a lot of people don't like bones because they come from dead things, but let me show you that bones are actually much cooler than you might think. First of all, bones have effective load distribution properties. Throughout the structure of a bone, the thickness of the walls and the density varies, as well as there's internal scaffolding in the form of struts and ridges present here that provide structural support within the bone and distribute loads more effectively. This helps it maintain a hollow and lightweight structure, which is also important for something like a bicycle. Additionally, researchers have already mimicked the structure of bones to improve load distribution. This here is a 3D model of a 3D printing composite that mimics the structure of bones to improve load distribution. This was generated using these patterns here, which are known as Voronoi patterns or Voronoi tessellations, and researchers have used these and layered them and changed them in order to mimic the internal structure of a bone. This gave me a plan for how I wanted to address this problem and build my own bicycle, which led to my first design, which takes a more traditional triangle form frame, and I cut out patterns following the Voronoi tessellations within the inside to sort of create tubes that would act like the structure of a bone. However, upon putting this together, me and all my genius realized that the pieces don't actually fit together, and it would actually be too weak for me to be able to ride it. So this led me to think about the goal of my bicycle again, which was to improve load distribution at interface points. This led to the design you see behind me or on stage here. The main thing to notice is that there is no tube connecting this bottom bracket area and the head tube here, nor tubes connecting the bottom bracket to the dropout area here. The main thing that this achieved was reducing the number of interface points down in this area, making it less work for me to have to improve and analyze this, as well as just reducing the number of places where things could go wrong. Additionally, now the biomimetic designs are in the form of cutouts here that are present on the side panels of the wooden bicycle. Additionally, in order to mitigate or account for anisotropy, the material I used was birch plywood. Birch plywood has been specifically engineered for the purpose of having a lower degree of anisotropy, which makes it more optimal for my design because then, again, it's less work for me. Additionally, when connecting these wood pieces, I aligned them and connected them so that the grains of the plywood were parallel, like so, which led for more optimal load distribution and less anisotropy, as shown by previous research. Now, if I could just build a bicycle and be done with it, I would be a much happier man, but I would also not be a very good student or researcher, which meant that my next step was to actually test my design. And for that, I used the method of finite element analysis, or FEA. What FEA is essentially it's a computer simulation where it takes my 3D model, and this 3D model was one that I created using Fusion 360. And within my 3D model, I defined different material properties for each of the components present in my design. The material properties came from previous research where other researchers used FEA for birch plywood, and I was able to use the values that they did to create my own anisotropic material. This would allow me to address anisotropy in my project, which would have been great. But Fusion 360, the software I was using for simulation, does not support anisotropic materials for testing. So, after crying for a bit, I looked for different alternatives to a software. And I found a few, but also, in my humble opinion, no high school research project is worth spending $20,000 on software for. So I did not use different software. Instead, I created two different materials and applied them differently based on the direction that forces were being applied in my scenario. This could at least let me somewhat replicate anisotropy. The next step was for me to create load cases, which essentially define what forces are applied in what direction and what parts of the frame are allowed to move in what ways. I followed what people much smarter than me did and just essentially copied the load cases that they used for their studies of bicycle design in mine. Previous research has created 4 load cases replicating 4 different scenarios: a bump at the front and rear wheels, as well as climbing into and out of the saddle. This gave me data on the stress, which is the amount of load that's concentrated in a certain amount of area, the displacement of certain parts of the bicycle frame, and the safety factor, which compares the stress undergone to the maximum stress that a component can undergo before it breaks or fractures. I then visualized the data using heat maps such as these. This is the stress distribution for load case 1, a bump at the front wheel. And essentially, blue is great, green is good, yellow is okay, and red is bad. And as you can see, the majority of the stress is actually concentrated within the biomimetic structures themselves, away from the interface points. This is consistent across all 4 load cases and shows that these designs are actually capable of distributing loads away from this area and throughout their structure, providing a possible solution to my problem outlined before. But with all that stress in these areas, you would have to ask yourself, or have to ask me, is the design really strong enough to withstand these stresses? So this is the safety factor design. And like before, blue is great, red is bad. And as you can see, for the most part, my design is expected to withstand or uphold against these stresses. And this, again, is consistent across all 4 load cases. But let's go back to this one, because I know a lot of people would have seen this red here. And yes, that might mean it'll break. That's what the analysis is telling me. But I am smarter than the computer, because I see what the computer doesn't see. And I see that this red portion actually does not cover a significant amount of the area, nor does it cover all 4 sides or faces of this of the components. So really, I can consider this insignificant and say that my design will still uphold the stresses. Now that being said, my design is not perfect. Yes, the data doesn't say that it will break, but there's still room for improvement. It creaks every time I get on it. The bike is surprisingly wobbly, and it has a bias to always be turning left. That's my fault, but I think that's okay, because this wasn't about creating the perfect bicycle for me. This was also about creating a meaningful project. And that goes for everyone. You should want to create a meaningful project for your last project in high school. And in order to create a meaningful project, you first have to create something that is real. What I mean by real is that your project shouldn't look or seem effortless. You're doing this not only for yourself, but for other people. You're doing it for a community, and you want other people to care. And if you want other people to care, you have to show that you care. You have to show that you tried, that you failed, and that when you failed, you try to find a solution to your mistakes. Because I'm going to be honest, this is the best time and place of your life for you to make mistakes, which sounds a bit weird because you need to, pass or succeed in this course to graduate. But think about it for a sec. You're surrounded by people, your peers, and especially your teachers who want to help you, who want to listen to you, and who want to see you succeed. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. You're not here to create a flawless project. You can know everything, right? You can create a project that works perfectly, that's written perfectly, and that looks perfect. But at the end of the day, if your project doesn't have a human element to it and doesn't connect with other people, then it's meaningless. Not to be mean, but your goal should be to connect with other people. So whether it be when you're trying to find a problem or talking about a problem with someone, or you're working through your process, or you're showing off your solution, yes, you're a student, but remember to be a person as well. So pour a bit of your soul into this project that you've created. Go write that idea down that's been on your mind. Go talk to that person. Go build that thing that you've wanted to build for a long time, or a short time. But at the end of the day, make sure that you create something new. No, actually, don't do that. Don't just create something new. Create something real. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Thank you to our presenters. Let's give them one more round of applause. And thank you, audience, for your attention and participation. Senior students, please stay behind, and for everyone else, you're excused. Thank you.